Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 origin continent based on novel. So let's start. Right now, Luo Feng said. If the master demands, then let's have the contest. Morosa had no choice, who asked for the master to be the master. Master, I will not burn divine power, nor will I use any primal chaos realm moves. I will purely engage using my body, Morosa said. This way he would only exert about 10% of his strength. Luo Feng smiled and nodded, good. As he spoke, Luo Feng waved his hand. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dark space of this level of the Star Tower, 300 silver blade lights hovered in the air, each about 10 meters long. Morosa, you better be ready, Luo Feng said with a smile. Bring it on, Morosa said, looking at the ordinary 300 blade lights, and couldn't help muttering to himself, fancy moves, weak godly body, weak realm, no threat at all. The blade technique I am using is the Primal Chaos Blade, which is the first blade of the world-breaking 9 blades in the Primal Chaos realm, containing a hint of the aura from the Great Tao of Destruction origin, Luo Feng said cheerfully. Morosa still wasn't concerned, Destruction's origin. The master's mysteries of Destruction's origin were all learned from him. Boom. 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 The 300 blade lights, each formed from 180 billion silver droplets, even in their normal state are tens of thousands of kilometers long. But now, shrunken to about 10 meters, their power was intensely concentrated, making them even sharper. The world-breaking 9 blades in the Primal Chaos realm aimed to split open the cage. Luo Feng had watched Morosa demonstrate the mysteries of Destruction's origin, and had also vaguely comprehended some of the mysteries hidden between heaven and earth in the Great Tao of Destruction's origin. He knew that the path of destruction contained many branches. The world-breaking 9 blades pursued one of the branches of Destruction's origin, the Chop and Split branch. This branch's name was not known to Luo Feng. It was a name he came up with himself. During his comprehension, he naturally understood the many characteristics of this branch, which sought to split everything in the universe in twain. It contained endless sharpness, aiming to split apart all hindrances. Luo Feng was ultimately a swordsman, and this branch suited his temperament well, so naturally, he spent most of his thoughts on it. At this moment, the 300 blade lights were pitilessly sharp, converging like a rolling river of blades, embodying the force of 300 ordinary primal chaos realm beings burning their divine power in a desperate strike. Rumbling tilde tilde tilde. Effortlessly powerful. Dense masses of spatial layers were instantly destroyed, its force comparable to the final blade of world-breaking 9 blades, the world-breaking blade. At close range, Morosa was so startled that his eyes bulged, his divine power within violently burst forth, surging violently, his godly body's might greatly increased, and then he was engulfed by the river of silver blade light. Morosa was blasted forth like a streak of flowing light, bang, slamming fiercely against the inner wall of the Star Tower. His skin was covered in numerous wounds, his bones broken in many places, his body terribly mangled, and his face horribly disfigured. The previously simple and honest face had become much uglier. He fell down from the inner wall of the Star Tower, his injuries quickly disappearing, and both his eyes returned to normal as he exclaimed in disbelief, Master, how long has it been? You can already match my full strength strike, when I'm burning divine power. How is that possible? I've been in the Primal Chaos realm for more than 5 eras. My body has grown to its limit, and I still possess various secret techniques. How long has Master broken through to catch up with me? Morosa couldn't believe it, nor could he accept it. Wasn't he naturally possessing the mysteries of Destruction's origin, and now he'd been caught up to in terms of cultivation? Luo Feng watched him with a smile, 300 blades of light floating around. I've always said, you need to understand, to learn to research, Luo Feng teased. Understand. Study. I can't learn that, Morosa couldn't help saying, Master, now I have to go all out. At that moment, as Morosa stood there, the surrounding void twisted, his body seemingly transforming into a dark abyss, causing everything in all directions to twist and shatter. The shattering of the void spread continually, also reaching towards Luo Feng. Master, just because a technique is powerful doesn't mean it's strong. Realm is also very important, Morosa said. Oh? Luo Feng watched Morosa at that moment. Morosa himself seemed like a dark abyss, his figure becoming indistinct. Slash. Luo Feng did not hesitate. The 300 blades of light, carrying the force that split everything, also sliced toward the twisted dark endless abyss before him. This endless abyss shattered and twisted everything around, and Luo Feng's blade's force was crushed, twisted, and devoured. Most of its power was destroyed and ground up, with only a small part remaining, which was swallowed by Morosa, leaving him completely unharmed this time. Master, if your blade technique is just powerful, then its weakness is too obvious. Morosa, incarnated as the Dark Abyss, transmitted his voice. With the increase in realm, some mighty primal chaos realm techniques are quite mysterious, and your power is likely to be mostly dissipated or redirected. As a sector beast, I am quite skilled in the art of survival. But in terms of realm, I'm far from reaching the threshold of a godly king. I'm probably inferior compared to the deeply accumulated Marquis of Zhujiang, Morosa said. He considered himself somewhat stronger than the Marquis of Zhujiang, because of the foundation of a perfect life form. Just in terms of realm, after all, he had only been in the primal chaos realm for a bit more than 5 eras, without having consumed any formidable treasures, or godly body, and thus naturally his grasp and understanding of the mysteries of the destruction's origin were not extensive. I know. Luo Feng nodded. According to the intelligence, Marquis Zhujiang can hide in the void, his body existing between the real and the illusory. Indeed, my 300 blades of light would have a hard time fully striking him. Marquis Liu Yin is even more formidable. Though I can now approach his strength in terms of technique power, I estimate I can't even touch him. I admit, I'm not confident I could defeat Marquis Liu Yin. Morosa reverted to his normal appearance. After all, he is a pinnacle of the primal chaos realm existence, rumored to be able to transform into a world's disaster. In front of him, I can only say I have a chance at survival. Luo Feng smiled and said, Morosa, don't forget, I haven't been in the primal chaos realm for long. Morosa was taken aback, and couldn't help saying, right, Master, you've just reached the primal chaos realm, how come you've become so strong? This is a secret technique of transformation I've created using the ability of formless and intangible, Luo Feng explained. Self-created. Morosa was shocked, the feeling complex at this moment. This was the difference between a sector beast and a cultivator. Sector beasts naturally absorbed countless insights from the origin of destruction, and their understanding of various secret techniques was instinctive. They didn't need to contemplate or create anything on their own. Luo Feng nodded and said, this transformation secret technique that I created myself offers immense help in terms of my godly body. Now that I've barely started, this is my current strength. 300 blade lights, they can dodge, transfer, or dissipate them. But what about 1,000 blade lights, or 3,000? Luo Feng said, overwhelm the many with one. Even if each blade light isn't very strong, a change in quantity causes a change in quality. Once the power accumulates to a terrifying degree, it can even split open a braided cage. Who among them could avoid it? The braided cage would be split open. Everything in the way must be annihilated. 3,000 blade lights. Master, can your power still increase tenfold? Morosa couldn't help but ask. The great Tao of destruction origin. It was supreme power, entirely devastating everything. As a pet of the destruction origin, Morosa knew very well how unimaginable it was when such absolute power reached a certain level. Sweep across everything. Destroy everything. Space-time, worlds, causality, and all else must be shattered. Before absolute destruction, there was no need to consider any entanglement of causality, no need to mind any schemes, and it could even level the entire world. That pinnacle sector beast comprehends the complete great Tao of destruction origin. Yet, it's merely a sector beast of the first-rate Qianmu kingdom. It doesn't even dare to unleash a catastrophe. It seems that the foundation of the two ancient countries cannot be compared to the complete great Tao of destruction origin. Morosa, understanding the power of the destruction origin, was increasingly aware of the terror of the two ancient countries. His master was willing to become a guest elder in the line of Emperor Chu of the flame-wind ancient country, and Morosa was also willing. The stronger his master became, the safer he would be. I employ the lineage of life origin to perfect the law of transformation, Luo Feng nodded. Then, I use the lineage of the destruction origin to execute my blade technique. 300 blade lights are just the beginning. Luo Feng was not hiding anything in front of Morosa. Because his current realm was quite low, the primal chaos blade was his strongest blade technique, and it required considerable effort to use. At this moment, the fact that he could control 300 blades was purely because the soul of his perfect divine body was strong enough, and his spiritual will was at the godly king level, which allowed him to forcefully control so many blade lights. As his godly body continued to grow and the soul nurtured within it became stronger, the number of blade lights he could control would increase. Most importantly, as his realm improved, Luo Feng's execution of the blade technique would become easier and his consumption of heart force would reduce. Naturally, he would be able to perform more techniques. Master, your transformation law is already so formidable just at the introductory stage. If it continues to grow, its potential is indeed enormous, admired Morosa. This method is merely in its embryonic form, Luo Feng also acknowledged this fact. Even the primal chaos layer creatures that he had collected on his own consisted of 6 types, and he had only studied one so far. The law of transformation naturally involves the study of multiple transformations. Draw upon their strengths. Moreover, there are also some creatures in the primal chaos layer that naturally possess primal chaos realm strength. These are much more powerful than the silverlight creatures, and have been captured alive by some major powers. Luo Feng believed that the flame-wind ancient country had also captured some, and he planned to study 1 or 2 of them when possible. The creation and perfection of the law of transformation, the strengthening of the soul and spiritual will, and the ascension of realm. All these improvements would enhance his power. Luo Feng vaguely saw. The path of the law of transformation is one where he could break laws with force, using absolute power to destroy everything. Perhaps during his phase in the primal chaos realm, he might hope to split open the braided cage. Of course, Luo Feng did not dare to hope for too much, considering that some ancient godly kings couldn't achieve this. Go back to your tasks, Luo Feng waved his hand, moving Morosa out, and then he began to focus on his cultivation again. Entering the early stages of the primal chaos realm was a period of rapid strength enhancement, and Luo Feng wanted to devote himself to seclusion. Morosa was moved out, but he felt somewhat unpleasant. Previously, the master could only defeat me by using the secret technique of willpower. But now, it seems, he could likely defeat me in a regular fight, Morosa thought. I too must find a way to accelerate my growth. But I don't know how to study or comprehend. I need to devour some powerful godly bodies and treasures to enhance myself faster. But to obtain these godly bodies and treasures, I need the master's help. Morosa was quite troubled. As a sector beast, he had to be extremely careful during his growth stages. This land of origin was too hostile towards him as a sector beast. Displeased, Morosa decided to look for some food. Lord Luo Sa, Mo Yu Qingyang ran over. What's the matter? Morosa glanced at Mo Yu Qingyang, feeling quite annoyed at seeing this youngster whom he had painstakingly taught for over 30 years. How stupid he was, so much inferior compared to the master. His master's growth rate made even him, a natural bearer of the destruction origin, somewhat anxious. Lord Luo Sa, I've made a breakthrough, Mo Yu Qingyang was ecstatic. I've finally mastered all of the 10 fundamental laws. Upon hearing this, Morosa glanced at Mo Yu Qingyang and said, So you've mastered the 10 fundamental laws. Is such a trivial matter worth getting excited over? Mo Yu Qingyang was taken aback and immediately nodded obediently. Compared to his master and Lord Luo Sa, both of whom were incredibly strong eternal true gods, he was indeed very weak. Hurry up and get me something to eat, said Morosa. The master is in seclusion and should not be disturbed. When the master comes out of seclusion, then tell him about your breakthrough. I'll go prepare something to eat right away. Having served Morosa for so long, Moyu Qingyang was well aware of Morosa's preferences and immediately went to make arrangements. See a thnoalpha.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Morosa watched Moyu Qingyang run off and finally revealed a smile, feeling extremely pleased. This foolish boy has finally made a breakthrough. My own cultivation has never been this exhausting. Inside the Star Tower, Luo Feng sat cross-legged, and a strand of primal chaos divine power instantly transformed into an exceedingly tiny black octodecahedron, which also bore the patterns of the primal chaos laws on its surface. Luo Feng felt that this black octodecahedron was like an extension of his own arms and legs, his consciousness able to permeate it. He could not help but reveal a look of joy. The 6 species of primal chaos layer creatures that I've collected, I have finally mastered the second type. Whoosh tilde tilde tilde. With a casual wave of his hand, Luo Feng sprinkled a large amount of divine power, which transformed into numerous black octodecahedrons, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 1 billion, 180 trillion. The number transformed and evolved was exactly the same as the previous silver droplets creatures. When 180 trillion black octodecahedrons were completely combined, Luo Feng also felt a sense of perfection. These primal chaos layer creatures are quite similar, Luo Feng thought. Perhaps those naturally born with primal chaos realm strength are fundamentally different from them. It's a pity that those strongest primal chaos layer creatures were already captured long ago. Whoosh! After the fusion of the 180 trillion black octodecahedrons, they were like a dark, black mountain, stable and unshakable. Rise, thought Luo Feng, and immediately, 10 silver blade lights appeared, violently striking the black mountain. The black mountain, as though harboring an endless abyss within, naturally absorbed the limitless impact force, without moving an inch. Not even the 10 silver blade lights could shake it. Just as I anticipated, its defense is very strong. Luo Feng conducted test after test. After a long time, Luo Feng was quite satisfied. The previous silver droplet transformation method, setting the benchmark, serves as the base. This black octodecahedron transformation method, although unsuitable for executing blade techniques, with only 30% of the power and 20% of the movement speed of the silver droplet transformation method, its defensive strength reaches 9 times higher, also having the ability to absorb enemy forces for a counterstrike. Defense, along with the ability to absorb and counterstrike. The first transformation method I've comprehended, the silver droplet transformation method, is thus named the galaxy transformation method, Luo Feng thought, since 180 trillion droplets of silver indeed formed a silver river. The second transformation method shall be named the black abyss transformation method, Luo Feng mused. Each black octodecahedron containing space within, capable of absorbing and counterattacking with force. This also made them remarkably sturdy. Silver droplet creatures were already very resilient, but the toughness of the black octodecahedron was 9 times that. They are all scalable, and in black abyss form, they can form a protective robe, Luo Feng thought. The black mountain in the air quickly covered Luo Feng's body, transforming into a set of black robes. I can transform all into black abyss form using 10% of the divine power from my perfect divine body. Who then can harm me? With the black abyss robe on the surface, with the star tower maintaining primal chaotic space within, and surrounded by an endless silver galaxy. First, I'll study these 6 transformation methods. Afterward, I can go to the primal chaos layer and collect more primal chaos layer creatures. Luo Feng was quite interested in these creatures. After all, they were naturally born, each basic unit of strength containing a life spirituality. To create out of nothing was exceedingly difficult. Yet, merely transforming, Luo Feng still managed to achieve it. He believed that as he studied more primal chaos layer creatures, the transformation methods would certainly improve. With dozens or even hundreds of transformation methods, accumulated experience may sooner or later allow creation of the most suited godly body for himself. Inside the city owner's mansion, at Luo Feng's separate courtyard. Master, you're out of seclusion. Morosa's telepathy detected Luo Feng's emergence immediately. One has to rest sometime, Luo Feng said with a smile. Achieving a transformation method was indeed no small feat, especially since each transformation involved creatures from the primal chaos layer with different internal structures and different life spiritualities. Go arrange some food for me, Luo Feng commanded, and then he picked up a jug of wine himself, which he carried with him. However, the food would need to be freshly prepared. I'll arrange it right away. While Morosa was affirmatively responding, he couldn't help but add, Master, there is something I must tell you first. Go on, Luo Feng said leisurely while drinking. Completing a transformation method felt truly fulfilling, and naturally, his mood was excellent. Moyu Qingyang, that lad, has already mastered the 10 fundamental laws and has become a true god of void space, Morosa spoke. Has he finally figured it out? Luo Feng laughed. With you, a great master personally guiding him, it took him so long to break through. It seems Moyu Qingyang's comprehension isn't considered very high. Morosa shook his head. It's not just not very high, his comprehension is poor. Compared to Master, far too inferior. Morosa, after all, had been with Luo Feng for a long time, and had witnessed Luo Feng's rapid growth. Luo Feng's progress put even him, a sector beast, under pressure. Compared to that, Moyu Qingyang naturally appeared utterly mediocre. He's already done quite well, Luo Feng chuckled. Master, are you planning to take him as a disciple? Morosa asked. According to what was said initially, mastering the 10 fundamental laws was just the first test. Luo Feng looked at Morosa with interest. Don't hold back, I know, you want to help Moyu Qingyang. Morosa laughed, heh. Actually, his long-term following us, and being with us day and night, is another test. A test of his true nature, Luo Feng explained. Over 3 decades of constant companionship is enough to understand his true nature. This Moyu Qingyang knows restraint, acts meticulously, and has also not used my name to recklessly gain benefits outside. With Luo Feng's fame in Huyang City, as one of his only 2 servants, Moyu Qingyang could have gained many benefits had he been greedy. When they were 3 brothers before me, I saw that this lad was the more down-to-earth one, Luo Feng reminisced. Back then, he had stated that he wouldn't provide any guidance, and without any guidance, see a thnovelia.ne*t website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. In the land of origin, many true gods could spend their entire lives without comprehending the 10 fundamental laws. In such circumstances, Moyu Qingyang was still willing to follow. Even though he knew there were numerous dangers, Moyu Qingyang did not waver. His elder brother and 3rd brother had both given up. At that time, Luo Feng had felt that Moyu Qingyang had a good nature, being the most steadfast of them all. So, Master, what do you mean? Morosa asked. Having spent over 3 decades together, he has also passed the test. Luo Feng looked at Morosa, but I sense that he should be closer to you at heart. How about, you let him take you as his master? Take me as his master. Morosa was startled. Your current status is that of a powerful eternal true god. Once I am strong enough in the future, you can naturally make a breakthrough to the primal chaos realm, Luo Feng said. To be his master is indeed sufficient. Morosa was indeed somewhat tempted. After all, after such a long time together, and over 3 decades of careful teaching, he naturally developed feelings. Forget it. Morosa shook his head, and telepathically communicated to Luo Feng. In the early stages, I need to be very careful, not to reveal any sharpness. Even if I grow to the pinnacle in the future, having a sector beast as a disciple is not exactly a prestigious status. But Master, you are different. You will be a guest elder in the flame-wind ancient country, your future status will be more noble, and your strength greater. Plus, your identity is reputable, being your disciple will bring him far greater benefits. Luo Feng was a normal cultivator, and even though some of the top inheritances in flame-wind ancient country had high thresholds with various checkups and screenings, there was nothing to worry about. But it was different for Morosa. The detailed checkups and screenings, even those that could delve deep into the body, would find that Morosa's body contained a realm within it. Therefore, he was destined to keep a low profile. You really are considering everything for his sake, Luo Feng looked at Morosa. I'm tired of mentoring. I've taught him for over 3 decades, it's been enough, Morosa couldn't help saying. Luo Feng looked on, feeling rather emotional. As a sector beast representing cataclysm, Morosa, after being enslaved at the soul level and fully suppressing his ferocity, interacted with other creatures, formed bonds, and experienced grievances. All creatures have a glimmer of life. Sector beasts, beings born with the power to control the destruction of the origin, are also controlled by that same origin, only knowing slaughter and destruction, ultimately leading themselves to destruction. Luo Feng thought, perhaps being enslaved, seemingly losing freedom, actually suppresses their violence, giving them this glimmer of life. Sector beasts, born that way, seem to have their destinies already set. However, being enslaved could possibly allow them to escape that destiny. All right, since you won't take him, then I will take him as my disciple, Luo Feng said. Thank you, Master, Morosa exclaimed joyfully. Soon, Luo Feng publicly took a disciple, which was also the first disciple he took in the land of origin. Mo Yuhu's family, General Yuewu, General Yonghu, and many high-status eternal true gods from Zhujiang Primal Chaos Prefecture, all attended the ceremony. Gaowu Shui, Moli Feiyun, and Jiarong Qi also stood in a corner watching. Lord Luo he actually took Qingyang as a disciple. Mo Yuhu was very excited. Initially, he had exchanged his most valuable treasure, and a favor from Luo Feng for the chance for his son to become a disciple. Who would have thought that after a test lasting more than 3 decades, Lord Luo he would take a disciple? Lord Luo he is likely to reach the primal chaos realm. His own son Qingyang truly has ascended to the heavens in one step. He actually became a disciple so quickly. Mo Yu Lifeng, the eldest of the Mo Yu family, felt happy for his brother, yet had mixed emotions. After all, such a great opportunity had been in front of him too, but he chose to give it up. Now his brother had successfully become a disciple. A young fellow, fortunate enough to take Lord Luo he as a master, the Dream Flower Tower master observed from aside, also very envious. Lord Luo he doesn't lightly take anyone under his wing. Up to now, there had been only one servant, Lord Luo Sa, and his newly accepted sole disciple, Mo Yu Qingyang. Disciple Mo Yu Qingyang, paying respects to master. Mo Yu Qingyang formally knelt down in utmost respect. This scene was witnessed by everyone present. In the land of origin, becoming a disciple was an extremely solemn affair. The relationship between master and disciple could even surpass kinship ties. Once becoming a disciple, one was devoted to the master for life. If one betrayed the master, it would be scorned by all parties. After all, the grace of imparting teaching, guidance, cultivation resources, providing weapon secret treasures, and guiding the path of cultivation. A master's kindness towards a disciple was immense. To betray such immense kindness, what cultivator could be trusted? Who would dare employ him? Rise, Luo Feng said with a smile, looking at Mo Yu Qingyang. Mo Yu Qingyang stood up, feeling tremendously excited at the moment, as if he were in a dream. Congratulations, Brother Luo He, General Yuewu, and General Yong who both offered their congratulations from the side. This young one is still very naive, he needs to cultivate diligently, Luo Feng said with a smile. Mo Yu Qingyang stood to the side, glancing at Morosa nearby. In his heart, Mo Yu Qingyang even harbored the idea of taking Morosa as his master. Given the countless careful teachings over the years, he was very grateful. However, he kept this thought deep in his heart. The act of Lord Luo he taking a disciple was just a minor episode in the wars between the two great primal chaos prefectures. Time silently passed, and an era had elapsed. The Marquis of Zhujiang was also trying to find ways to visit various powerful beings, all who did not fear Marquis Liu Yin. However, he had not been able to secure any powerful allies. This video will end here.